Retired Army Ranger and Florida GOP Congressman Brian Mast was there, and he joins us this morning to tell us what happened. I know that you have said this was as unpatriotic and appalling as it gets. What happened to you? Tell us what I know you were at the House floor. You went into your office and you couldn't leave. Is that right?
No, I had spoke on the House floor, and this must have happened right on the tails of me walking off the floor. I spoke, I walked off the floor, nothing was going on, and by the time I walked 5 minutes to my office, this was playing out on the television, bearing out on the television. So it must have happened really directly on my heels. But I really feel like I need to say this. The day is going to be filled with speculation about that attack yesterday. And it is a huge regret, wholly unpatriotic, un-American. But I feel like the thing that I wish would be remembered about January 6, 2021, was the fact that democracy, the pride of our country, was literally attacked. And hours later, we resumed the democratic process that we take so much pride in. That I wish that was what would be remembered about yesterday.
Well, that's true. It's not. That'll be one of the things, but it's not. And Congressman, I vividly remember you after the RNC walking out, and you lost both your legs in battle, and people were screaming at you, challenging at you. Those were the those were rioters. They wanted to create chaos. They were targeting Republicans. Why did I think that Trump supporters would never do something like that? Do you believe that you saw a different side of Trump supporters?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you said, why do you believe that? I think it goes really to the heart of what you just quoted Dan Bongino, one of my neighbors, one of my constituents, saying, we have this set of principles, this set of rules that we don't push aside. And as conservatives, we uphold that. You don't expect to see us treat our country like Antifa, to spray paint things, to knock things over, to tip over barriers, and to climb over walls, and to break windows, and to attack literally our Capitol law enforcement or any other law enforcement. You don't expect to see that out of conservatives, and it is disgraceful to see that.
I know you were in the Capitol complex. My daughter was there. She was locked down all day. Very long story, very emotional. But a couple of her smart friends over on the Senate side did something that, I'm glad they did. Those big mahogany boxes that actually had each of the states' election results, they picked them up and they took them out of the Senate chamber, because had they not done that, and those looters had found those, that the democracy that you're talking about, the process of certification of Joe Biden's presidency would not have happened yesterday.
That's the first time I've heard that. I'm glad that you just shared that. That's an important piece of our history to understand that occurred. You think about, you could use a number of adjectives, the idiots that were out there, placing themselves on the floor of the Senate chamber, or even in Speaker Pelosi's desk, that stupidity that was going on. And to save that piece of what needed to happen for our democratic process, that was swift thinking, and applauds to them. And
right there, Congressman, those are that's one of the mahogany boxes that they took out of the Senate complex yesterday. But ultimately, there were so many people at that Stop the Steal rally yesterday where they were under the impression that Mike Pence could somehow derail Joe Biden's win and install President Trump. And that's why President Trump has apparently thrown Mike Pence under the bus, and Mark Short, his chief of staff, has been excluded from the White House property. He says because he gave the vice president advice about certifying what happened yesterday. But ultimately, so many of those people at the Stop the Steal rally thought that could happen. That's a fairy tale.
Let me tell you why I find certainly no pride in the attacks that happened yesterday, but pride in yesterday. And I hope every school, those that were out there rioting, all Americans, I hope they take the opportunity to go back and listen and watch 3 or 4 hours of debate from last night, say from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. this morning. And what you will hear is what America is owed out of this body of Congress every single day. The most thoughtful, deliberate debate on both sides of that issue, from both Republicans and Democrats. It was a renaissance of what I imagine it to be like when there was debate here going on with our founding fathers. That was the kind of debate that was going on. And it was the first time that I can say I witnessed that level of it in the 4 years that I've been here. And I take pride in that occurring, regardless of where I found agreement or disagreement with individuals. And those rioters and all Americans need to see that, if in my opinion, to have a full understanding of everything that was being argued with Vice President Mike Pence and with the state constitutions and our Constitution of the United States of America. It is worth the permanently being enshrined within the civics of our country to learn a lesson forever going forward.
So, Congressman, what happened yesterday, last night, is being talked about all around the world. It sends a message to them, and that's pretty terrifying. So going forward, how are we going to make sure you all are safe when you're inside the building?
Look, that's an important question. You look at the fact that they knew, the Capitol police officers knew that there was a threat, right? That's why there were barricades around the building. That's why they weren't allowing visitors into the building, though it's the people's house, and I respect that fact of it. It's very odd to me that they were not armed with less than lethal rounds, such as rubber bullets or bean bags or gas or other things. You think of the various layers that they breached to get into the Capitol. First of all, probably 100-meter, roughly gated off area with waist-high gates that there were absolutely officers around that they went over. But there was not a show of force at that point. Then there were, of course, officers at the metal detectors within the doors and guarding the doors and on the roof of the Capitol and other places. Again, no show of force at that point, largely. And then officers throughout the building and roving patrols within the House chambers and the Senate chambers and other places. And not less than lethal, largely not less than lethal shows of force to deal with that by a police force that is probably more experienced in dealing with riots and large crowds than any other force anywhere in the country. The Capitol Police dealing with this possibly on a, certainly a weekly basis, these kind of crowds. Serious questions need to be answered. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a resignation by the chief of the Capitol Police. I'm not saying that that's being talked about, but I wouldn't be surprised if